Hi, I'm Ludwig from Germany. We continue our videos on the symbolism of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. My books about Tolkien offer an interpretation showing many parallels between Tolkien's story and our history, current events, and possibly also future events. I repeat that my interpretations are just interpretations, and I hope they will inspire and enlighten you as to what we as mankind can do to overcome the current global challenges. Now then, in the first two videos we clarified the meaning of some symbolism that we need for today's interpretation as to what may be really going on in our time behind the many visible problems of mankind. There are three sections in The Lord of the Rings referring to our time. Aragorn's passage through the Valley of the Dead, then Sauron's war against Minas Tirith, and Frodo's captivity in Minas Morgul. All of these three sections carry important information about our time. In this video we will shed light on the meaning of Frodo's situation. In the section of Frodo's captivity, Tolkien relates to two wars that have been waged in our time. One war for collective mind control and a war of two factions of the global deep state against one another. So far, the two factions of the deep state managed to twist the public's perception of their war against one another in a way that we only perceive the war against our thinking ability, and even that only the awakening do. In order to understand the events happening on Earth during the first 2 decades of the 21st century, we have to learn distinguishing those two wars. Only then we will be able to recognize the agents of the global deep state who have mingled with the truthless whistleblowers and freedom fighters who will win their fight against the renegade elite. Those agents are already leading the fight for freedom and want to lead us even after the defeat of the renegades. They want to steer out for our further thinking processes as defined by the global deep state. While the awakening become increasingly aware of the global deep state war against us, the war that has not been perceived by the world public is the war between the two factions of the deep state. More precisely, it's a war between the agents of the global deep state, Shagrat, against a renegade part of their global power apparatus, the renegade orc Gorbak and his orc gang. 9/11 is symbolized by Shelob's attack on Frodo. After her attack, Frodo is unconscious, as if paralyzed. That means the collective thinking was paralyzed for a while after 9/11. In this stage, the MSM in the sphere of the renegade elite launched a war against terror. This mainstream media war against terror forced the paralyzed collective mind into a confrontation with the mainstream media, in which the renegade elite has ever since tried to start World War III, and we the people had to liberate ourselves from our fears in order to withdraw from the fear control by the elite's mainstream media. Fortunately for mankind, unlike the renegade elite, the global deep state did not and does not want that World War III now, mainly because of its implied danger to destroy mankind and them. Now, what renegade elite are we talking about? Gorbak is the renegade orc. Gorbak no longer wants to obey Sauron and wants to rule for himself. So Gorbak symbolizes that renegade faction of the global deep state who no longer want to serve the global deep state in order to rule over mankind for themselves. The orcs think they have full control over Frodo and quarrel over his mithril shirt. In their wrangle, they systematically kill one another until only Shagrat remains. Shagrat then leaves Minas Morgul to report to Sauron so that Frodo and Sam manage to escape. So who is Gorbak, the renegade orc in our world, referring to? The global deep state have been pursuing their plan to establish a power monopoly over mankind for centuries already. This plan intends to structure the world economy in a way steering mankind into total dependency and defenselessness against their plan. So the war is led primarily through the monetary system. In the course of the first two world wars, the global deep state made the US into a center sucking the wealth out of this world. Because of this strategy, the US elite became the global deep state's most powerful servant, their most powerful orc, controlling numerous governments such as the European ones. In order to understand the history of our time at all, it is vital to see through the following. At some point after World War II, the very powerful US elite decided to make themselves independent from the global deep state and to try to gain control over this world, against the will of the global deep state and in competition with them. When the US elite considered their plans to seize power over mankind to be matured, they staged 9/11. 9/11 was to be the kickoff for a development leading to World War III and their total reign. So it is the US elite acting on their own who are symbolized by Gorbak and his orcs. 9/11 was the concoction of the US elite, not the global deep state. This maneuver of the US elite resulted in a hot hidden war behind the scenes between the US elite and the global deep state, symbolized by the war between the two orc factions in Minas Morgul. During the first 2 decades of the 21st century, probably the most brutal elite war has been waged behind the scenes of power, and it's not over yet. The main reason for the upcoming victory of the global deep state is that they decided to exploit the emerging patriotism and freedom fight against the elites in the Western countries. They have placed themselves at the top of this fight and created the impression that there would only be a fight between the patriots of mankind on one side against the elites and the deep state on the other, who have waged their war against the peoples with leftist politics. In this manner, they can leverage the increasing vehemence emanating from the people for their liberation against the US elite. That will allow them to finally wear the US elite down, to create the impression, after the US elite's defeat, that the free peoples have conclusively defeated the deep state and thus remain invisible themselves, or to be considered as the good guys and continue their quest for world domination. Through their steering capabilities, the global deep state managed that the only thing becoming more and more visible for more and more people has been that there are elites behind the occurrences in the world trying to gain a power monopoly over mankind. According to Tolkien's symbolic prediction, the US elite will lose their war with the global deep state. For in the end, Shagrat, Sauron's commander, kills the renegade orc Gorbak. This event, that is symbolized by Gorbak's death, became perceptible already through the election of Donald Trump, the candidate of the global deep state, against Hillary Clinton, the candidate of the renegade US elite. The visible fear going through the ranks of the US elite after the election of Donald Trump was their fear of the surely deadly revenge by the global deep state for their treason. Donald Trump had the global deep state and their steering capabilities on his side in order to checkmate the US elite and at the same time pacify the international relations that had been steered towards World War III by the US elite. Although the global deep state is likely to come out victorious in this conflict, as was to be expected from the outset, and will guide their man Donald Trump or some other representative to victory over the US elite, they will get a major problem because of the increasing visibility of the deep state's war against mankind and because of the awakening patriotism. Mankind is waking up and aware of the deep state's war against them. Mankind is increasingly aware there is an elite who want to impose their power over us, and that is not a conspiracy theory. Mankind will no longer be dissuaded from this knowledge, so that the global deep state will have to pay a high price for their upcoming victory over the US elite. After Gorbak's death, Shagrat, the orc Shagrat, leaves Minas Morgul in order to report and get instructions from Sauron. During his absence, Frodo and Sam manage to escape. That means as soon as the representatives of the global deep state, such as the BRICS countries, the Alliance, Trump and Q, will have defeated the renegade US elite, they will resume control of the global power structure, in particular over the heads of state and the mainstream media. Subsequently, they will adjust everything to the will and the planning of the global deep state. As only few people must know what is really going on, this transition phase will take some time. During this transition stage, mankind's collective thinking has a really good chance to escape the mind control by the deep state and remain independent for good, symbolized by Frodo's never returning to Minas Morgul. Many evil things committed not only by the US elite but by the entire global deep state will come to the light, and we have a good chance that the global deep state will not be able to adjust their narrative to the revelations to an extent that would allow them to maintain their collective mind control. So while the US elite is put into their place by the global deep state, Gorbak's death, it may well no longer be possible after this victory to steer mankind's mind as the deep state wishes. According to Tolkien's foresight, there will be a critical mass of people whose thinking and conviction can no longer be steered to the extent required by the global deep state, symbolized by Shagrad's departure and Frodo's and Sam's escape from Minas Morgul. Frodo's escape from Minas Morgul is not long after Gorbak's death. That means we, mankind, have a good chance to liberate ourselves from the mind control by the global deep state, not long after the upcoming defeat of the US elite by the global deep state. The war against mankind may well become too apparent for too many people. Specifically, we can assume that the US elite's defeat will be sealed by convictions currently looming through 10,000s of sealed indictments. The conviction of the US elite at the latest will then mean Gorbak's death. However, the conviction of the US elite might then already be part of yet another event predicted by Tolkien that we will address in the 6th video of this Tolkien series and one following video after that. Many will object now that Donald Trump is not a man of the globalists but a true patriot. To understand that he is not, we need to see the global deep state's dialectic control. Donald Trump's role for the globalists is to lead the patriots. The global deep state have decided to no longer use the US as their means to suck the wealth out of this world, but to transfer these tasks to China. Subsequently, the global finance flows will increasingly be steered past the US, and the US will impoverish consequently. The deep state's plan involves making the Americans blame the patriots for the impoverishment. Their target is to make the US ready to accept their new role provided to them by the global deep state. Trump is a man of the global deep state in this process. His task is to help defeat the US elite and then to decry patriotism. American economy will do well only until the US elite is defeated, so that people are grateful to Trump and support him. One of the global deep state's main goals is to make the Americans ready to submit themselves to the UN that is being rejected by Trump and to vehemently for dialectic purposes. The Americans are to equate the ultimate impoverishment with their rejection of the UN to develop the readiness to submit themselves to it. All of this is dialectic control of our collective mind. More than anything else, the global deep state are world champions in steering the people's collective will in a way that our aspiration to freedom fails, so that the leaders of the effort to liberate us from the control of the global deep state are ultimately rejected by the people, and the people themselves allow the global deep state's plans to pass. The global deep state is simply a master in using their diabolic dialectic and thus in twisting all things into exactly the direction that they want. Their dialectic uses opposing half-truths to enforce the desired half-truth. Example of half-truths are communism and capitalism. The half-truth in communism is equality, the half-truth in capitalism is a free market. The global deep state can perfectly use both to control us. As long as the global deep state exists and have their finger in the pie, virtually nothing is as it seems to be. And yet, with the downfall of the US elite, with Gorbach's death, there will be positive side effects that will severely aggravate the global deep state's game to enslave us. It is the mutual impediment and battling for supremacy of the US elite and the global deep state that will ultimately contribute to the loss of either's control of the collective mind. Through this awakening of independent thinking, people will no longer believe the mainstream media nor the alternative media without analyzing the contents. They will no longer be easily dismayed or nurture false hopes. They will take heart from their exchange with like-minded people and think for themselves. That will be the moment of critical mass when Frodo, our common sense, will leave Minas Morgul, the control of our thinking by the mainstream media, and reach Mordor. Right now it is still a minority, but after the defeat of the US elite by the global deep state, there will be a big chance for a collective breakthrough for us to escape the collective mind control by the global deep state. Frodo's escape from Minas Morgul will be the precondition and cause for the finally obtained turn in the battle for Minas Tirith that we will look at in the 6th video. The turn in the battle for Minas Tirith symbolizes the final turn in the fate of mankind towards our collective liberation. However, that liberation will then still be quite a while into the future. We are not there yet by far. In this video, we have dealt with the events of our time as symbolically predicted by J.R.R. Tolkien in The Lord of the Rings. It is important that we recognize that there is not only a war by the global deep state against mankind, but also a war between two factions of the deep state. According to Tolkien, the global deep state will soon defeat the renegade US elite. They will try to portray this defeat as mankind's ultimate victory over the elites in order to keep going on the side of the good guys. They will try to leverage that victory to advance single items of their agenda to establish a world monopoly over us. However, due to the unstoppable awakening of mankind, they will hopefully fail, depending of course on how vehemently and wisely we keep pushing for our freedom and a better world for all. In the next video we will leave Tolkien's symbolism and expound more on the hidden global elite war, its meaning, its connections and implications. And in the video after the next video we will return to the Tolkien video series. Always remember, we can create in the world only what is within us. If we want peace in the world, there has to be peace within us first. If you have questions or ideas, leave me a comment, give me a like, subscribe my channel and spread the video. See you.